part 2 of rejected proposals for doing a project and getting it taken care of and having it funded and staffed and catered. I shouldn't even bother commenting because you're obviously a troll who is clearly incapable of keeping your opponents in context. This came from somebody. I shouldn't even bother commenting, but you can't help yourself because I did something that had an effect on you or something. You're obviously a troll. The only people who ever say that to me is when I've actually proven a point and they can't stand it. Just address the points and shut up. I'm clearly incapable of keeping my opponent in context. You mean doing this the way you want to do it? You must be new here. Here we go. This is part 5 and 6 in no particular order. Actually, no. It might be. You want me to be more specific? When the disc recorders came out in 1967 and 1968, what's your point? These devices. Because your assertion and not everybody else's assertion, which was the original purpose of this whole thing, not you, was that, and this is what I was responding to, not you, is it's trivial to do this in the past, or it would be easy, or no, it'd be easy to do it now is the claim too. Nobody does it. All I ask in my video is everybody who says they can do something and says it's easy, then go ahead and do so and shut up and do it. This is like claiming, oh, this perpetual motion machine, it works every time. Then why won't you let us use one and demonstrate that it works? Because it doesn't. It's that simple. Prove it. If you're going to say something was faked, one of the hardest things to debunk, if you're going to make this kind of claim, is if you actually prove that it can be faked by literally faking it. If you say that some live broadcast was faked, okay, there's a live broadcast of Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address. No, I'm not kidding. Someone made something like that as an animation from the only known photos that were probably from that era, probably from that day, probably from that event. They just used it as a mask image to build something. They made an animation and they used a person's voice that's at least close to it. They might have even gotten a sample of his voice from some early recording for all I know. The point I'm making is you can prove that it was faked by faking it yourself, right? There are people who are alive now who have made Lego versions of the Star Wars movie. And you're sitting there, the person who made this assertion, telling me and everybody else that we have to provide you with the equipment, and then saying that I'm lying by saying you're demanding something in return for doing something. I'm not going to give you anything. Your proposal is rejected. Now we're going to get onto this. Your claim is that I'm trolling you and you shouldn't bother because I'm incapable of keeping my opponents in the context they want to be in. Or I'm taking them out of context. You're not being really clear here. So let's go on with your actual stuff. The main points of my video, no, your main points that you keep repeating that don't have anything to do with mine. If you can prove this was possible to fake this live broadcast sci-fi movie that we all watched back in the 60s before I was born, or when I was just born. Maybe I looked at the screen, I don't know. If you're going to make a claim that this supposedly live broadcast was faked in a studio, then do so. That's literally the only claim I've made. And another person's claim is that it wasn't technically possible to do it with video technology of the time unless you can provide some evidence that something existed. You're going to have to at least invent something. I'm being much more generous. I'm saying go ahead and fake it with current technology and then back up the process and prove that you can do it in the past. I'm giving you a giant hint here. Oddly enough, you gave me some of the links to show that I could do this, but anyway. So this will be part 1, and 6 is what I did already. I partially did that. And 5. I'm going to repeat part of 5 because I want to cover it a little bit. But here we go with part 1. The main points of the video was faking the moon missions would require, with either of the two things I'm going to talk about, and then you get a grammatically bad problem here. Either it's a slow-mo disc recorder, you mean a instant replay. That's what it's an instant replay player. It's 30 seconds. And the other assertion is high-speed cameras. High-speed cameras, high-speed video cameras specifically, were available at that time, yes. That's not the point. The point is that the technology, even though that is available, wouldn't have allowed for a feature-length, live teleplay of a sci-fi movie. Okay, I'm putting it in that context because most people are capable of understanding, by me saying that, how much of a screaming pain in the ass it would be to do it. Period. Everybody can get that. Just like me saying, you telling me a laundry list of stuff, and I have links to the videos, quoting price tags, you're basically asking for payment. You could have just said, hey, provide me the equipment, I'll do it. You have to tell us what the equipment is. You have to tell us how to do this. And my only assertion originally, and it's the one I capped up, is if you're going to try to claim that something was faked, the best way to prove that it was faked is to actually fake it. Even if it's current technology, at least it would be a step. No one will do these things. And when people try to fake them, they fail. Because it's really hard to fake this. Why don't you just acknowledge that? And I'm talking about the vast majority of people who make these claims say, they get all excited and say, it was trivial to do it. No, it wasn't. And S.G. Collins posted a video explaining that using video technology would be about the last way you'd ever want to do it. But in his opinion, and mine too, you'd have to use video technology. It is possible to do it, not with video technology, but it's really, really difficult. Alright? Just listen, okay? Now here we go. Collins denied that there were slow-mo cameras available. Okay, this is an assertion you've made repeatedly. Collins did not deny there were slow-motion cameras available. Nice shift. And available is very, very vague. I showed that there were. Technically, maybe. Collins claimed the HS-100 could not be used for faking moon landings because it can only hold 30 seconds. From vast amounts of experience and how impractical that would be to try to use that, and I'm going to use the wording everybody gets when they watch this video, about frame buffers always screwing up, and using a 30-second frame buffer would be would be generous, but wouldn't work if you're trying to take in something that's going to be played back for around a couple hours and have to slow-mo, let's say half of it. You're going to have to record an hour of video and run it through a buffer to make it slow-mo. And honestly, you'd want to record everything else at 10 frames a second, which is what it was, or something like that. And you'd have to be able to make this consistent and nobody notice a defect. You're asking a lot, and you're not doing it. My claim is really, really offensive to you, because it's really going to shut people up. Prove it's possible by doing it. Doesn't take a billion. If it takes $1 billion budget to do it, you do know now that we can show that you can just use that multi-billion-dollar project budget, like we have, adjusting for today's economy, to actually just go to the moon, right? You understand that the amount of money, and the thing is, we're better at it. Back then, they weren't as good at it. They might have actually used a little bit more money, and it took a lot of effort, a lot of people. I'm going to get to that. I pointed out the storage capacity was irrelevant. Your claim originally, very interesting, was that it had unlimited capacity, and that's what you implied directly in your video, and you were lying by doing that. I call it lying. Misleading people is lying. I expand the definition. You can claim that I'm abusing the definition of the word lie, but most people would agree with me. And again, if they want to look at your channel, they can go ahead and look up your name if they want to. Just look up this subject. Just look up HS-100 and moon landing, and you'll find me and him. Apparently that's pissing you off that I come up in the search results next. And then record the playback on a master. Okay, you're doing something here that's overly complicated. This is a very common trope in sci-fi ideas and conspiracy theories. Let's make something much more complicated than it. You're missing a methodology, a couple of methodologies I've hinted at. I'm not going to give you anything. You don't deserve the education. You reject reality and history. Why would I educate you? You're trying to destroy knowledge. Storage capacity isn't irrelevant if you're citing a source that's storage capacity based and then implying that it's unlimited somehow. Okay, anyway. Collins himself went into detail on how it can be done. That's a good theory. Whether you can do it depends on whether or not you can make 95 frame accurate edits between a quad machine and a disc recorder in the days before timecode editing. What they did have was a system of cue tones and multiple heads, which I'm told would enable frame accurate edits between those machines. So theoretically, what you're suggesting goes from being impossible to not bleeding likely. And again, you're moving goalposts because this is not the subject matter. Because it's not. But I'm making an empty assertion here. Because all I say is if you want to prove that this can be done, just do it. Well, now, the storage capacity of the HS200 was not the main point of your video. Yes, it was. You made sure it was. That's very interesting. It says it has effectively an unlimited recording capacity, which is completely bombastically strange that you do that. And yeah, you went on about talking about 30-second buckets as a hypothetical method. But you obviously were trying to give the viewer the impression that there's no limit. And everybody who watched it probably gave you the information. It's in the PDF file. It doesn't have that unlimited. Why'd you imply that? Well, and of course your reply might have been, you're implying that I'm implying. No, you were implying and no one's implying it. We're saying it outright. You're misleading people. Now your rejection of this is you're lying. When you refuse to acknowledge you did something, you did it. You know. High-speed video cameras did exist in 1968. You didn't need to store the whole thing on a disc recorder when bucketing it between the disc recorder and master tapes were technically possible and would drive someone insane and they would commit suicide on the spot. I'm sorry. Read the description of my video. No, I won't, because I don't want to look at your channel anymore. In summary, Collins claims there were no high-speed video cameras. No, he did not. That's not the summary. He said that the technology at the time would not allow you to do the whole project. You're just picking one little quote mining, and then you complain when I quote mine something you're obviously doing. High-speed video cameras first came into existence in the early 1960s. That's a nice assertion. The fastest they could shoot was 60 frames per second. Everybody who's had to upload a video on YouTube knows 60 frames a second. Seriously? That's a high-speed camera. In the 1960s, there were cameras, specifically video cameras, that could work with imagery that was much faster. You do know that. Do a video on how to make a video camera and a TV screen, and how to make an analog recording loop. It only has to hold a half a second of data. The faster you go, the less information and storage you need as far as storage area. No, I mean it. Do it. It's a certain number of frames. You don't have to use you really don't know what you're talking about. Collinson says the Ampex HS100 magnetic disc recorder could store 30 seconds of footage. It's irrelevant. No, it was relevant because it's a limit. It's a specification. It's only irrelevant because it contradicts what you were saying and implying strongly. Are you going to go through and edit the video out or just delete it entirely and make it all better? You could just as easily feed recordings from videotape into a disc recorder piece by piece and then record it in slow motion. And of course you're going to do this. You can simulate this on a computer if you're being honest and show people the settings in whatever video editor you're doing, and then someone else can try to do it. It's called reproducibility of results. On a computer you could probably do it. I know for a fact that it's a screaming pain in the rump and it takes more effort than that. You're talking about buffer method or foobar. I shouldn't even bother commenting. And then the next, I'm going to go here. Twist it all you want. Cullen's point of contention in his second video, not the first one that you were complaining about him putting up, was that there was no color high-speed video cameras available. The 1970 Instar could do black and white and color. Color video is a modification of a black and white signal. There are recorders and were recorders that were black and white that would record the data in RAW mode without synchronizing it. They do exist, yes. That's one method. There's a dozen others. You didn't look them up, did you? That's the end of the discussion. High-speed color cameras were available for the other broadcasts. You didn't just move goalposts. You just built an entirely different stadium so you could win your freaking soccer game because you can't play football. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Play rugby next time.